Okay, so before we talk some Death Wish tonight here in the spoiler room, thanks for anyone and everyone coming down the stairs, pulling up a chair, grabbing your favorite drink, and listening to us yap about films. Before we get to Death Wish, we're waiting for Mr. BFD himself. Hey, did you watch that trailer for Carnage, Venom? Did you, Ian? Or no?
Yeah, I watched it.
Now, you're a fan of Venom, though, right? The first one?
Yes. Now, I only watched it the one time in the theater, and I had a really good time with it. But watching the trailer for Venom Let There Be Carnage, and I only watched it twice because I knew you wanted to talk about it, so I refreshed my mind. Man, that looks awful. Like it's like Andy Serkis was trying to make the movie that everybody thinks that they saw that I didn't see with the first one, because I thought the first one had a lot of like weird oddball charm to it, but everyone else thought it was trash. I feel like Andy Serkis is like, challenge accepted. I'll just make loud, obnoxious trash that looks a lot like the first movie, except the Venom symbiote now has this weird accent. I don't know if he's trying to be like street mixed with Tom. I know Tom Hardy does the voice, but I don't know what the hell he's doing with that voice now.
I wasn't. It sounded different, yeah, in the trailer, and maybe it'll be changed again in the film, because I've had that before, where you've got one way is in the trailer, and then in a movie it was completely different. Everyone, check out my interview with the director of Space Invaders. Yeah, shameless plug, but talking to Mr. Johnson about it, the trailer, they completely redubbed and changed from the footage that was actually in the film. I mean, it was completely off. So who knows? Maybe it's maybe it'll be better when it's in the film. Who knows? Maybe they'll see enough comments online and they'll go, oh, maybe we should change this. You just ADR to shit anyway. So,
well, it just looks like the first movie, except Woody Harrelson's in it now. They've got the same people in the lab freaking out and changing, and just the symbiotes screaming at each other, and now one of them's red. Like, that's the thing, is I feel like I can like the first Venom movie and hope that there's a second one, because there's places you can take the story. But if the only place you're going to take the story is back to the first movie, I'm totally not interested.
Though I'm slowly going to have to come up with possibly the 52 degrees WH, because Crepes, he's like in every franchise he's trying to work his way in, Mr. Woody Harrelson. I mean, Hunger Games, Star Wars,
Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, it's the guy. Don't get me wrong. I like Woody Harrelson. I always, like him. I always appreciate the fact that he took roles and was able to break out of the Woody stereotype that was set in Cheers, because so many people, especially when those actors do TV, that's why I've heard stories anyway, that's why they're reluctant to do TV characters, because if it's an icon and it takes off, one, they can't do other projects because they're always working on the TV show, and two, some people think that's them. Woody,
it's all depends on who you are. So I know Jim O'Hare, who was on Parks and Rec, he loves the fact that he had that character and that people recognize him on the street, and it hasn't stopped him from doing other things. But yeah, there are other people who like Dustin Diamond, who is forever Screech.
He is forever Screech. He did a sex tape and he was still Screech, and it was just like, I don't want to see Screech's Screech.
No. Saved by the bell end. But no, I think with that's the other thing though, like, because he showed up in the Stinger, I think, at the first end of the first Venom, and I believe they changed the wig, because I remember him having that curly kind of red hair, close to the comic book character. But if I had to guess, the people at Sony Marvel listen to the reactions of the audience and their shrieking laughter when Harrelson showed up on screen, like, we gotta make his hair a little less ridiculous. And that's what they did in this one, in the trailer anyway. They made it a little less ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's going on with Woody Harrelson in this movie. He's like, welcome back. It's so good to see you, Eddie Brock. I'm like, what do you sound like you're doing a Family Guy character.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it's one of those where, you know, I've been impressed mostly with most modern trailers. They usually piece together very well, though I will complain that they throw away some of their best special effects scenes within the trailer, and then you get there and you go, oh, that is the best scene in the film, is the one you showed me 5 times in the trailer in front of all these films I've watched before this was released. But this trailer felt rushed, actually. It felt like it was just kind of slapped together because people were clamoring on, where's our trailer for the new Venom film? Because it just
Were there people clamoring for
oh
that
yeah.
trailer?
No,
Really?
I know there were people wondering, what are we going to get a trailer? What are we going to get a trailer? And suddenly we get a trailer and it's just like, huh. You know, now it looks like there might be more story there than just, you know, quippy Woody Harrelson infected with the symbiote you know, Carnage. And there is the link. I know very little about Venom because, again, Marvel. Nothing against Marvel. I don't read Marvel. But I do know that there's a connection. Like Venom's like Carnage's mom, kind of. Carnage is spun off from Venom or something. Or
Yeah, but I mean that's you really need Spider-Man in that mix in order for that to make sense. So
right.
it's like a lot of Marvel movies, they take very little from the comics and just kind of do their own thing. But yeah, that's the other thing is I realize, and again, you're right, there might be more to this than what they're showing in the trailer. I certainly hope so because I'm probably going to watch this movie, and if I have to sit through again, but seriously, like an hour and a half, 2 hours, it's just if 2020 has taught us anything, it's that time is very precious and nothing is guaranteed. So I'm gonna have to be very judicious about the movies I actually leave the house to go see. But I hope there's more to it, but I
Well, I
don't
mean,
see what there could be because we don't even have Spider-Man in this movie. You get one movie without Spider-Man, that's fine. You get another movie without Spider-Man, but it's just 2 Venoms. We already had 2 Venoms at the end of the first movie.
he kills a spider on in one of the scenes. I in all honesty, and I think it would be great that they pull it off. And maybe I'm giving studios too much credit, but if Marvel's really got their claws into Sony going, bitch, do this. What? Come on, they're giving, you can't tell me there's not some collaboration going on. It would be a great holdout until the release weekend to find out that Tom Holland's Spider-Man shows up as a cameo in Venom Let There Be Carnage. Only because I could see them doing the last trailer before opening weekend, and suddenly in that last trailer you get a little glimpse or something of Tom Holland or just his voice or whatever, because boom, you would hook so many more people who would want to come in and see Spider-Man. And in that trailer there's also a woman in some kind of you know, testing booth that we're not quite sure. I'm at least not versed enough in Marvel of who that might be, but there looks like there might be more story there than just Carnage and Venom. So
Yeah, they did. I know there was a Lady Venom or a Lady Carnage or something in one of the other comics I didn't read, but I mean that's the thing is like I am so over Marvel movies. Like I'm so much more interested in the TV show that
yeah,
like this whole Phase 4 thing, like I don't care about the Shang-Chi. I know nothing about the was it the Eternals or the
yeah,
Immortals or whoever they're supposed to be.
The Eternals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm going to be going into these movies fully open to being wowed, but also like 90% skeptical that because I feel like Marvel was kind of over with Phase 3 in terms of the movies, and the real Phase 4 is happening on television. So watching these little one-offs, yeah,
I'm biding my time in all honesty until Madness of the Multiverse. In all
yes.
honesty,
Well, because that feels like it ties more into whatever was going on in WandaVision. Yeah.
yeah. Well, not only that it ties into WandaVision, but just you know, all the elements and everything I've heard of, what very little they've leaked out about it has interested me. And there's a lot of the Marvel films, I'm just like, oh, like, the new Avengers or Age of Ultron. I'm like, when they did Ant-Man, I'm like, okay, now I'm interested because I know very little and I've not heard really much of Ant-Man. They did Doctor Strange, which the only thing I knew of Doctor Strange was my dad loved the comics and I used to read the comics occasionally, but I didn't remember much about them.
Mhm.
That interested me more than, oh, look, it's Captain America 2.5, it's Avengers 2.5. Yeah, Captain America Civil War, aka Avengers 2.5. But those properties, Black Panther, those properties that I didn't know of. So them doing some of these characters I'm not quite familiar with, I am curious on, but I can't wait for the Doctor Strange one because I love what they did and the world and the fact that they sold magic in the MCU to a bunch of new of the cinematic fans of the of Marvel, the new fans they picked up. People bought into it, and I was happy that it was successful because that I wanted to see. I'm like, I want to see more batshit crazy stuff with the comics. It's a comic book film. That's why I really wish Green Lantern is not a great film. Don't get me wrong.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
The bold statement for Green Lantern is I enjoy it more. I don't think it's as painfully bad as people suggest. I think it what they were going to go for, they bit off way more than they could chew with it. They needed to scale it back because I think that had the potential of being really fun because the Green Lantern comic, while there was serious parts in it, also had some great gimmicks. What he made with the ring were humorous when he, slammed someone with an anvil or something, shit like that. I was like, okay, how's that going to translate? And they did very little of that. And I'm like, they did some of it, but I'm like, I wanted to see more of that. So,
Well, it's probably that they would have done that in the sequel. They had to kind of prove out that, people want to see this and we can show a little bit of the potential, but we got to save something for the next movie when hopefully we'll have more money.
They just, I think they bit off more than they could chew, kind of like the Fantastic Four attempts they kept doing. It always seems like, yes, I know it's kind of a big scale of how that person came to be, but at the same time, pick a common villain. Don't pick like an epic galactic villain. I just, you know what I mean? Start small.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, especially when you get these properties like the Fantastic Four, which, a lot of comics people know them and they're the first family of Marvel, but you break outside of that into the mainstream audiences. Who the hell knows who the Fantastic Four is really? Like, oh, I think there's a rock guy and maybe an invisible person, but but when it comes to their villains, like, you're going to go for Galactus, or at least the shadow of Galactus that we saw in the Silver Surfer movie, which I actually really liked. Rise of the Silver Surfer. I haven't watched that in a long time, but I remember it being better than the first Fantastic Four when essentially you build up Doctor Doom to the point where the big climactic battle is he just shows up outside their apartment and they have a tiny brawl in the street and then he's like goes to jail or something.
How do they do that? How do they take Doctor Doom, who, again, not a huge Marvel fan, but I know Doctor Doom and I knew a good chunk of what he did from what I've read up, on summaries of the character and synopsises of comic book runs and that. And Doctor Doom was always one of those villains where I was like, how could you screw him up? And they have multiple times, especially getting good actors to play him, and they still screw it up.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, and with the Josh Trank's Fantastic Four movie or Fan Four Stick, which is great just in terms of watching a train wreck. I mean, it's an awful movie, but
it is.
But it had a great cast, and it had some interesting ideas. But the problem is, again, it had Doctor Doom. But in the first Fantastic Four, he is this, just a businessman or something. He's like a middle-aged guy or whatever who disfigured and gets the suit or makes the suit. In the next, in the remake, the Josh Trank version, he's like a college kid or just out of college, kind of a billionaire playboy guy who gets mixed up with the science thing and becomes evil. They just need to do a Fantastic Four movie, and hopefully Marvel will do this because they've established This is the Marvel universe. There are super villains. There are super intelligent bad guys just hanging out in the world, overpowered freaks. They could just have him be the dictator of, was it Latveria or
Yeah.
whatever? Just have him be the guy who rules over this piddly little vaguely European country in an iron mask. You don't need to show him like going to business school and then like
Yeah.
apprenticing in mask making or something. Just have him be the villain straight out so you waste little time.
I mean, you sold Sokovia, so
Mhm.
you could sell it easy that there's this little piddly country that nobody's really been paying attention that's actually ruled by a dictator, Dr. Doom. You're
Yeah.
right. You're absolutely right. You could do that. And it turns out that he's got some tech and shit that he's stolen and that he's done, and that this, not on scale of like Wakanda or something, but it's just like an evil Wakanda of sort, where he's ruled over with an iron fist and he's got all these gadgets. Nobody's been paying attention and he's grown into power in that country. You could do that easily.
It could be, I don't know if they would ever do this, but I mean, would it be interesting if there was like, if Latveria was a parallel to Wakanda? Because I don't remember that much about the Black Panther film in terms of the origins, like how the vibranium came to Wakanda. Didn't it like rain down a cosmic storm or something like that?
It was a cosmic storm, and they ended up being the main location where all of it fell.
Right. The main location. Imagine if some of it fell on this piddly little country and it fell into the wrong hands and someone built an evil society that had hidden itself from the world. And then it reveals itself, and the power that has to rise to defeat it is the Fantastic Four. I mean, we're writing the script right now.
We are. Look at this. See, folks, this is the good stuff here. We have written so much stuff. We've got a combined cinematic universe with Kersey, Bickle, and Braddock, along with Sesame Street. And now we're combining Fantastic Four, Dr. Doom with Wakanda. There you go. I mean, this is gold right here. Hollywood, call us, okay?
I'll just have to get in touch with E-Man. I don't know if you saw. He was on CNBC the other, or MSNBC the other day.
MSNBC. I saw a clip where he was on MSNBC, and I'm like, you go, man. You go. I was like, holy cow. I that is impressive and very cool. And it's cool that that's getting the exposure that it should. So I think that'll be interesting. So Glenn will be joining us shortly. I know we've rambled a bit, so we'll dive into here Death Wish 2, which is a canon film, folks. Yes, Death Wish 2, 1982, the sequel to Death Wish. But this is not a cannon fodder film. No, that's next week. That's the one everybody voted on. But,
help me out with this, Mark.
Yeah.
When I put in my Death Wish 2 Blu-ray from the Bronson collection, the
I've
ultimate,
got that one too. Yeah.
the Triple Threat collection.
The Triple Threat collection. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I saw a beautiful high-def MGM lion growling at me.
Right?
But I did not see the canon. I saw Golden and Globus in what was it called? City Pictures?
City Film.
City Film.
Yeah.
What's the deal with this?
I'm not sure on that. I read the chapter on Death Wish 2. I'm not sure what the deal is with it because, it's not labeled as canon at all. It's labeled as a Golan Globus production, but it's not labeled as a canon production. And in fact, they're working with two other producers to produce this film. As well as with City Film. I don't know. It surprised me in the credits. I will say that the Blu-ray is freaking wow. Did they clean that up? I was watching it going, this looks really good.
Yeah, I mean, it looked freaking 4K on my TV. I know it's not. It's just a Blu-ray, but geez.
Well, not only that, it's a Blu-ray. It's a triple pack Blu-ray. I mean, it's put out by MGM, but usually those have a lesser quality to them, but I was impressed by the Blu-ray of the Death Wish 2 that came with the with that Triple Threat, which was the 3 canon films in it. But yeah, it surprised me too that I didn't see the canon logo on it. I mean, you get the lion, but not the canon logo, and I was like, where is that? I'm missing that.
I felt cheated.
I did feel cheated.
But that was just the beginning of many
things that you felt
disappointments. With this movie. Now, I will say, okay, here comes Glenn. Well, I'll hold off. Glenn.
Hey,
What's
sorry
up,
about
sir?
all that.
No worries. We were just blabbing about the Venom Let There Be Carnage trailer anyway for 15 minutes. So very
right.
interesting. I'm sure people found that to be. So
They probably gave them a death wish.
probably gave them a death wish. Yes.
Well, we might have one or two more new listeners to the podcast at some point because I just wrapped up my D&D game
Oh.
and I told them I had to go talk about Death Wish 2, and the guy's like, "Oh, I might check that out." And I'm like, well, these are the original ones with Charlie Bronson. He goes, "Oh no, I'm familiar." So
see, and that's what I love about canon films, and that's why I've ended up doing a lot more canon films than planned this year, is because every time you mention a title of a canon film, it's like you don't hear a lot of people talk outside of the canon groups, but when you mention it, someone like, "Oh yeah, I know that film," and they get like excited and they know it. Even when it's movies like Death Wish 2. So tonight, I think, with the BFD here, so glad you could join us, Biff. We got Ian here, we got the whole Death Wish crew. So once again, BFD, you do it so well. Please, what is the synopsis of Death Wish 2?
all right. So Paul Kersey, mild-mannered crackshot architect, is back. And he's somehow in LA looking for the punks who murdered his daughter.
And his maid this time.
Yeah, his maid. For some reason, I don't understand. I don't understand that at all. And and then it just devolves into killing. And Shelley Bronson showing a wide range of emotion, everywhere from blank-faced to grimace.
He smiles a little bit.
He does smile a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
And what's the confusion on the maid? He spends so much time cleaning up the streets, he can't clean up his apartment. That makes sense. That checks out.
I suppose that makes perfect sense. Yes.
Yeah. You know what ran through my head was watching this film, the words of Mr. Bruce Willis, John McClane in Die Hard 2. Another plane, another terrorist, another air duck. How could the same shit happen to the same guy twice? And that is exactly what we get with Death Wish 2. I mean, only he didn't have a wife, so they killed the maid, but they get his daughter, who's still mute and a little bit better. She's a little bit woke up, but she gets kidnapped, raped.
And she kind of kills herself.
And then she kind of kills herself in her escape, which is interesting because I was reading up on, here's a shameless plug, prepare yourself, folks, on the Canon Film Guide, Volume 1, written by Austin Trunick. Check it out, folks. Because
he seems like an interesting guy to talk to. You should get on that, Mark.
I should get on that. But in that, apparently, originally, they were going to have, the story was going to be that they find his daughter dead and they rule it a suicide, but Kersey knows better, but the police don't look into it any further because of his daughter's mental issues. So they just figure she killed herself. So he actually goes out and looks for the actual people who killed his daughter, because her death was originally going to be ruled a suicide and not considered murder. So I don't think they played the kidnapping angle either. I think she ended up, going missing and then winding up dead, and society thinks she killed herself, but Kersey knows better, and so he goes on his act of revenge.
I'm glad they just went with the rehash of the first movie in that case, because that sounds awful.
It's not any worse.
Well, it is kind of in line with the way the cops would do an investigation, as evidenced by this movie. She has this little glass kitty cat trinket that he gives to her, and it's at the crime scene. It's dropped during the scuffle.
Yes.
Which, the cop comes up to Paul Kersey afterwards and said, "Oh, I found this," and he hands it to her. Isn't that evidence? Like, what if did they dust it for fingerprints? Like, did someone else handle that? Like, it's kind of like, hey, I found this cool bullet casing at the scene of a crime. You want this little trinket? No, that doesn't happen.
I'm sorry. Where's your degree in forensic science from?
It's NCISU, sir.
We've had 25 years of CIS shows and true crime shows. My kid loves forensic shows. He knows all kinds of shit like that. But
yeah, it'd be cool to have like a show about insect detectives. Call it Forensic Flies. Right.
I would believe you if you were, a goth woman wearing completely inappropriate attire for someone in a professional workplace.
Haven't we all been that though? No,
at least not in public. Maybe secretly. I couldn't walk in those boots too well though. Anyway,
but those boots were made for walking.
Yeah.
I could probably pull off the pigtails now.
You could do the pigtails. Sure.
Do it. No.
But,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, the cops. I mean, in the world of Death Wish. In the world of Death Wish, the cops, I have no idea. There are no rules for the cops because we have the LA cops who, once again, a lot of this seems familiar territory. Suddenly there's vigilante kills, and now the cops and the mayor don't want the word to get out that there's a vigilante killing people because they don't want anybody going out shooting anyone with long hair and smelling like dope, which sounded all familiar from New York.
Well, they probably all went to the same policeman's national convention or something and sat through the same seminars. That's my theory.
And also, folks, Biff, let me know if I'm wrong, but in the world of Death Wish, warrants don't exist. They just don't.
What's a warrant?
Well, guys, I was going to roll this out next week because I wanted to be sure, but I guess I can preview it. Watching Death Wish 2 this morning, which, funnily enough, I mentioned last week how I'd watched the first Death Wish in conjunction with the Bruce Willis remake. I actually watched Death Wish 2 on that same Jag, and I completely forgot about it. Like, I think I mentioned at the end of last week's episode, I may or may not have seen this movie. I put it in, and I was like, oh my God, I did watch this like 4 years ago. I have no memory of it. And, a la Celine Dion, it kept coming back to me now. I was jotting down in my notebook because I wasn't, that heavily invested in this. Death Wish bingo. So next week I may have Death Wish bingo cards to share with everyone. We have interrupted oral sex during a gratuitous rape scene, a delivery boy scam, a refusal to look at mugshots, traumatic flashbacks, Kersey slashed with a knife, and witnessing a car break-in without doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You also forgot police officer breaking in without a warrant.
Yes, that's what made me think of it. The warrantless search is going on here.
Warrantless search is in there. So you got to remember that. So, I mean, you got to give credit to Golan and Globus. I mean, this was another one of those where reading in the book, I only read the chapter for this one, though. I'm leaving the other ones for surprise after I get done with the other movies. But reading it, this was another one of those instances where they sold the distribution rights to it before they had the film made so they could make the film. But they apparently did one of their pre-releases where they released a whole campaign saying, hey, we're making Death Wish 2 without having the star or owning the rights to Death Wish 2. So Dino De Laurentiis, being who he was, forced their hand and forced them to buy the rights to Death Wish for 6 figures. And then Bronson wasn't going to come back for it. This is all in the book, folks. Bronson wasn't going to come back for it until they offered him $1.5 million, which makes him higher paid for this film than Braddock.
And this is 1982.
Bronson was 60 years old at this point.
My God. We should all be so blessed. Anyway.
But again, the director apparently initially too, the rape scene, the gratuitous rape scene, wasn't initially going to be shot in this, but the director that they got for it, who was in the first one, wanted that rape scene. Apparently it took them 6 days to shoot, and they lost their cinematographer during it. They had to. It
took him that scene took 6 days to shoot.
The rape sequence. I guess I think
sure that wasn't traumatizing to anyone at all.
with the character actors in there who apparently Glenn's apparently the director, according to it, this rape scene took 6 days to shoot, and the original cinematographer, who quit but would go on to shoot things like The Breakfast Club and Stand By Me.
Wow.
That's the guy who quit. He's like, this is gratuitous and this is sick, and he just got disgusted and left. So they got the guy who shot the 1976 King Kong remake to pick up and take over for him.
Yeah, I'm thoroughly confused now. Wow, that's quite a change.
Yeah.
Yes, Breakfast Club is much less rapey. That is not. Wow, and there's no reason for the scene to be.
Mm-mm.
You can just simply say, you could have had a fade to black and say, and be done with it. There's no reason to show stuff like this.
No, they doubled down. The first one, you think it's bad enough. You see Jeff Goldblum's butt, and they have the oral sex for 10 or 15 second scene. It's still very extraordinarily disturbing, and the abuse, and that's it. This whole sequence is twice as long and even more graphic. And you didn't need it. I was looking at this, and the way they could have cut this was, okay, you have the living room scene, you get the impression, okay, they rape her. They at that point, though, a lot of it's happening kind of off camera a bit, so it's implied what they're going to be doing, but not really showing. And then they say, we're going to take it to the bedroom. I figured, okay, so we'll just put our imaginations there of what's going on in there, and we're staying in the living room now for them waiting for Kersey to come back. No, we go to that room, and we see the multiple violations on screen multiple times for some whatever reason. Just like with the daughter, there's no reason for his daughter, who the hoodlums kidnap and take her to a remote location. There is no reason for them to rape her. You get the idea already that she is still a broken person. She easily could have just went to make an escape, imply that they were about to, but they didn't have to show anything. And she just bolts and runs through the window because she's not going to go through it again. That has more meaning and still has that impact than showing her, with no top on and the after the act. And it's like, really?
Well, it's just so cruel, because you think about, what she went through in the first movie, losing her mom, being sexually assaulted, and then it happening again. And then she runs and jumps through the window only to land on a spike. It's almost like the blackest, darkest humor you could find. It's like something you'd see in a Naked Gun movie where someone runs out a window and ends up being impaled on a fence. But this is in the context of something that actually could happen to someone. So the thing is, I really like Death Wish 2. I think it's a bad movie, but I like it better than the first one because it's partially about, I think, the relocation to Los Angeles. The first one had this gritty kind of a New York thing, like we're talking about real societal problems from a very distinct point of view, agree with it or not. But in this one, it's just, we're in sunny California. Everything looks very Hollywood, very polished. The score is completely overblown and melodramatic. And, Bronson, he's just going after dirtbags. So all the complaints I had last week about him just shooting people in the back as they ran away, he's just getting into street fights with Batman street villain level killers who are all coming at him. So it's okay, I can understand. And they're getting creative with the horrific murders, like Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne III, as he's noted here. His death scene is spectacular. He's behind a car getting shot at. He puts his boombox up in front of his face and dances backwards as if that's going to camouflage instead of being a giant target on his face. He gets shot in the face, and it's like he's like, I don't know if his tongue fell out of his mouth, but there's something that like giant chunk fell out of his mouth on the way down. Spectacular stuff.
That would be the third.
Oh, good.
Well, yeah, Glenn,
it's far more it's more exploitative than gritty. I think that the first one was trying to be.
Yeah, would you agree, Glenn? This is more of your straight up 80s action, isn't it, rather than your gritty?
I wouldn't even call it straight up 80s action because it's I think it's more gratuitous. And not even getting into the rape stuff, just the kill scenes are just, I mean, you look at a lot of the 80s, like, you know, like all the Commando ones, it's just simply, it's Arnold turning around and just going, and, you know, like 8 guys just go, and that's it. You know,
it's true.
I mean, even in that, like when he impales a dude with a pole, it's just steam comes out. Like, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Trying to let out some steam, not, look at that, I tore Bennett's jaw off his face.
True. But I will say I liked this one. Felt more of what I was hoping the first one would be, namely because Kersey is more controlled in this. This is what we get in this, what I was talking about in the last episode, what we didn't get, in that he's passing up guys who in the first film would have just been blowing people away. He's actually looking for the guys who did the thing in this one, you know? Yeah,
and it's a bit more narratively satisfying in that respect. But also, I like that, you know, later in the show, Vincent Gardenia's detective character from New York shows back up.
Yeah.
And we kind of get a little bit of Kersey's backstory of like what happened in the 2 years since the last movie. And like, because last we saw him, he was going to Chicago, but now he's in LA, and we find out what happened. So this is kind of Death Wish 3. There's almost like a missing chapter in there that we have to imagine what was going on in Chicago. I mean, yeah, he fell in love and decided to move to the City of Angels with Jerry Nichols of KABC radio. But you get the feeling that there were some bodies piled up in alleys while they were recording.
Well, 2 years or 5 years. Depends on who you ask in this movie, because it was 2 years, but it was 5 years. But
were there different?
There were, yeah. Yeah. Am I wrong on that? They mentioned it, which threw me off. I'm like,
I believe there are 2 different time frames mentioned. Yes.
Well, they're New York years, right? So they feel like, feels like 5 years or vice versa.
A year in LA equals like 2 in New York or something. Because in LA they mention about the LA guys mentioned it's 2 years. The guys in New York mentioned it's 5 years since the events. So, you know, 2 plus 5 divided by 2, so 3.5 years we'll go with.
Unless think about this, guys. During maybe this movie secretly takes place over the course of 3 years. He's just out in Skid Row, like renting that apartment. Like it was 2 years ago, but during the course of this film, he's just killing people for 3 years looking for these street punks. And so then by the end you get to 5.
Well, let's look at this Kersey's method now. I mean, you're right. It makes you wonder if he did do things in Chicago, because he's got this shit planned out this time. And the last time he was just leaving his apartment from the back door or whatnot and blowing people away around his neighborhood. In this one, he's going to like a separate side of town, the other side of the tracks. He's paying cash for a rundown apartment. He's leaving his gun in the apartment, not in his office downtown.
I love it. $50 a month for a room.
Dude, I would have not slept on that bed for $50. That's you needed a tetanus shot just walking in that apartment.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's got this thought out more, which makes me think, yeah, you may have learned some lessons from Death Wish 1, but He's got this more methodic. I like Kersey in this one better than the first one.
Although he still just kind of stumbles into some of the guys who happen to be the killers.
That's true.
Oh, look, there's some muggers attacking a couple. One of them just happens to be one of the people I need to kill.
Well, in fairness, he does go out every night and just like stare down everybody he encounters.
Yes.
He's literally the mugshot. He's doing the physical version of the mugshot book.
Yeah. And I mean, it's good that, unlike New York, where it would have been too hard to track these guys down, LA is just such a small town. It's easy to find these guys.
Well, they're territorial. I mean, come on. These guys are territorial. When you dress like that, you have to be. The villains... in the first one, the villains, the bad guys looked like your average punks. But these guys do look like it picked up from the end of Death Wish 1 to where they look like, rejects from Hackers. That's what we get here with these wonderful group of character actors who all play the villains. Apparently, the director gave them their opportunity to make their own style. So Lawrence Fishburne is the one, he picked out those glasses and their own look and everything. So I guess he gave them that.
Yeah, I mean, I like it because it does differentiate them from just like regular street toughs, and they all look very different. Like the main guy at the end had like this crazy giraffe neck and this kind of curly blonde fro, and Lawrence Fishburne. No one knew that he was going to become Larry Fishburne later on, but he's still very interesting to watch. My favorite out of all of them was the arms dealer that they went to in the park with the pink reflective shirt with the rainbow suspenders and the white hat. Like, I want an entire movie about this guy. I want to know what his deal is. But also, as far as the deaths, like. And it really comes out in that scene. Everybody dies when they get shot as if they've fallen into an electric fence. They're all like...
There's an extra twitch to every single death. I don't understand if that's just the way they were directed or what, but I caught that. I like after the third death, I'm like, why did he twitch again? It was like, he only shot you once. Why are you...
And also, I don't know anything about the geography of LA or anywhere really, but when that car drove through the fence, it then fell off a cliff.
Oh my God!
And landed and exploded. Like, where is this?
What I loved about that scene is that the car was driving fairly slow, but then you cut away and it's like, when I was a kid, I had Hot Wheels and you would drive them on the table. And then, of course, being a kid, you would wing them off the table. They just go flying. It was like some kid took the car and winged it off the cliff, but it wasn't going that fast in the previous scene.
Well, it's like physics, momentum, or something. Again, I got my degree, my cop's license at NCISU, and my doctorate from Scrubs University, community college.
Well, it's the general, and then it's the general. The car landed, so it has to blow up. Every car, when it falls down a cliff, it has to blow up. It regardless. Never mind in the real world, a lot of cars that have run off cliffs or rolled over, whatever, never exploded in fury. But, this car, maybe it was all the weapons in the back that would have fallen out with the trunk open.
There you go. Well, it was full of Molotov cocktails in the back seat. They just all ignited. I don't know how that works either.
Glenn, what did you think about them actually bringing some of the cast back from New York and having our a detective back? Was he really needed? I mean, what?
The entire concept of the couple of low-life criminals have been killed while doing low-life criminal things must be a vigilante killer. Hey, wasn't there one of those in New York 2 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, because punks in this crime-ridden town of LA, which is twice as crime-ridden as the New York from 5 years earlier. Yeah, 2 crooks dying. Yeah, that's a vigilante. 2 of them. I mean, at least in the first one, it took 7 before they were actually saying they had a vigilante. But here in LA too.
Hey, someone died in a drug deal. It's got to be a vigilante. Can't be the way that person would have died. Drug dealers are normally so nice to each other.
See, and that's the way I thought they were going to go, because the first time he tracks down the first set of guys, a drug deal goes down and he kills them during a drug deal. So how you jump from, oh, we've got a vigilante when this could just easily been a drug deal gone bad, to it, oh, that drug deal death. We get the crazy guy who does the slimy tongue thing when when we first meet him and they stole, Bronson's wallet. Later we see him during the drug deal, and Kersey gets the first guy right away. One of the guy from the gang, the drug dealers, he lets go. I guess he doesn't care if people see his fucking face now. But then he's facing this guy, and Ian, what's the point of making him religious? Are you a religious man? You believe in Jesus? Oh, well, you see him soon. It's like the whole point was just so that he could drop that line. Because
that's the entire point. Because it is just so cheesy. You believe in Jesus? Yeah. You're gonna meet him. It's like, I just shoot it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I didn't watch the trailer for this movie, but that's a trailer moment right there.
Oh yeah, that's definitely
that's a line for the trailer.
That's a clip going in the trailer just before.
That was also a pretty good Charlie Bronson you did there.
Oh, well,
yeah,
thank you.
Was. Yeah,
thanks.
That was really good. I think he had a little too much emotion, but other than that, I think.
Well, I'm drinking coffee. I should be drinking NyQuil.
But yeah, I mean, it's such a change from Kersey, who just was before just blowing guys away who were robbers in an alley. He corners them in an alley, just pop, fuck no, dropping lines. I'm just going to kill these guys because they're bad guys, and I'm going to kill them. And here he kills the one guy. I mean, he hesitates in a really bad edit to where he's pulling his gun back and he's moving away, and then we cut to a different scene to where he's pulling his gun back and moving away again. I mean, it's like, what? Quit hesitating. The old Kersey from Death Wish would have already blown away all four of these guys. He wouldn't have let the drug dealers go away. He would have just taken a chance and just popped all four of them. But now we've got Death Wish 2 Kersey, and he's only going after the bad guys, which on one hand I like, but on the other hand, this felt out of character for him in a way.
Well, maybe he was concentrated. He wanted to make sure that the guy that he was really after didn't get away by not focusing on the other people. I don't know. But
he's a crack shot. Glenn said it himself. He's a crack shot architect. So,
well, a man's got to know his limitations. But that's Clint Eastwood. I'm sorry.
Yes, this is remember, this is measure twice, kill once.
That's right. Which he does actually measure twice before he kills once in this drug deal scene. Which, funny you mentioned Clint Eastwood. Charlie Bronson was Leone's first choice for the Man with No Name series. Did you realize that?
I don't think I knew that.
Charlie Bronson was originally wanted Bronson because he had done westerns. So he wanted to get Bronson for it, but Bronson couldn't do it or something along that line. He wasn't as big of a name, so they got Eastwood. He chose that to do it, so they got Eastwood to do the Man with No Name series, which I'm trying to picture Bronson as in the poncho. I'm not sure the poncho would be Bronson,
Yeah, I just can't imagine with like the Eastwood stubble instead of that Bronson mustache.
Even better. Hold on to your butts, folks.
Let me get my hand free.
Oh, there you go. Thanks to the Canon Film Guide. Guess who was originally supposed to be in Death Wish as the Kersey character? Take a guess. Glenn, give me a guess.
It's got to be someone ridiculous, so I don't know. John Ritter.
Okay. What about you,
I would
Ian?
have loved that.
He said John Ritter. Who do you think was supposed to be initially in Kersey in Death Wish 1?
Lawrence Fishburne. No.
No. Prepare yourself. Jack Lemmon.
Jack Lemmon? Jack Lemmon? I can't see that. I could accept Jack Klugman. That would have been awesome.
Jack Klugman would have been awesome.
That would have been an odd couple of casting choices.
Jack Lemmon was initially supposed to be a Kersey character because it wasn't initially an architect. He was going to be the original script before it got retooled by the director who ended up directing Death Wish 2, which is where I was going, Michael Winner. He retooled the first script for the first film, so it wasn't an architect. It wasn't initially going to be the architect. It was going to be more of the original film, to where he was just an accountant, I think it was, or something along that lines. But you know, and in the original, one of the original scripts of the first one, he is supposed to go mad, and it's not like the retooled that we saw at the end of Death Wish 1. And apparently this script got retooled as well, especially with the gratuitous scenes we mentioned before, which Michael Winner apparently was very adamant about having in the film, to the point where they had to cut it down to get the rated R rating before it went theaters. Apparently what was filmed was a lot worse than what we got.
What the...
Yeah.
Again, why?
Let me just take a look here. Is the director in prison now? I'm hoping he's either in prison or dead. Let's see.
No, he's not. But
what? A white man? I would have never guessed.
Winner, prison dinner. No, yeah, it's weird because I put on Death Wish. I watched part of it this morning and then part of it later in the day. I put it on in a different DVD player and let it run, or Blu-ray player and let it run, because I had to go take care of laundry or something. I came back and it was 18 minutes into the film. And by that point, the rape and the assault had already happened. It happens very early in the movie.
Yeah.
But it's such a small part of the film. I don't know. Well, I guess I can figure out why it would spend 6 days creating this monstrosity. But you'd think that for that amount of effort, it would have been more central, or at least more of a run, contributed more to the runtime than, 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, there may have been more, like I said, and then was cut down so they could get the R rating. But even still, it was very early in the film that it was happening. Which also... the maid, I don't know. I'm like sitting here going, you're in LA, it's crime-ridden city, and you just take someone's word. Oh, I have a delivery for Mr. Kersey. You don't tell him, leave it on the doorstep, please, or something along that lines. She just, opens the door.
Yeah, I don't know. There was just so much weirdness going on with that whole maid situation. Like, she's sitting there making tacos for dinner. I mean, it feels like, oh, he's got a Mexican maid, and what is she going to make for dinner? Oh, tacos, of course, because that's what they do.
Of course.
Yeah. She's such a throwaway character. It seemed like she had a relationship with Paul Kersey, not like an intimate one, but like there was a story there.
She'd been his housekeeper for a while. This isn't like where they were rotating housekeepers. This is like a major housekeeper, because they were on very, very frank terms when they talked to each other. It was more like just
it's like banter.
Yeah, it was banter. You almost for a brief moment you're like, wait, are they in a? No, they're not in a relationship. Okay, but it was just the way they were very familiar with one another enough. You're like, okay, she's been around for a while, and this is a very, known person. And then we get his love interest, who he's apparently been with for a while, which was Bronson's wife in real life, Jill Ireland. He insisted she be in the film. That's one of the stipulations. No, one of the stipulations for him being in the movie, besides the 1.5 million, was that she gets to play his love interest. Apparently she did like 16 films with Bronson total or something like that over the years. But
was their daughter Kathy Ireland?
No, they wasn't Kathy Ireland.
Oh, okay.
No, not the alien from LA. No, there's a combined universe. There you go.
No, I mean, I think she did well. The only thing that rubbed me wrong about her character was there's not really a sense of like time in this movie, but it feels like what what was it? She like it was like a week after the daughter and the maid were, assaulted and killed. She like comes over to the apartment or something. I think she wakes him up, or she propositioned him like, hey, want some company? I'm like, no. I just put my daughter in the ground. What are you doing?
It wasn't snowing this time, though. It was not snowing this time.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so, yeah, funerals. I got to write that. Add that to the bingo.
Add that to the bingo. Funerals, which, it's one of those things where, okay, they buried his wife in New York and they buried his daughter in L.A., I guess.
He's not going to go back to New York. He probably can't go back to New York. He's a known
right.
He's a known man.
He lost all his New York privileges. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's right. This film, I mean, on one hand, it is an improvement in many ways as far as narratively, I think, over Death Wish, and the Paul Kersey character is painted more as a hero type than he was in the first one. That said, the entire world that he lives in around him makes not a lot of sense.
I do love that they maintain the dual life architect kind of a thing, because it's less in this movie. There was more business at the office with the coworkers and that whole trip to Arizona from the first one. But in this one, there's like just weird subplot about like, is the boss at KABC radio going to go with the granite or the marble archway to the building? It's like this whole big drama decision that his wife is involved in. But it's just kind of cute because Kersey can maintain this double life of like, it's going to be $500,000. Let your wife decide. And then he's going out and just like murdering people at 3 a.m.
Yep.
Like you do.
That's when he smiles. So he can turn on the charm.
This definitely is one of those sequels that hits nearly all the same beats as the previous film, which is just like, Steven Seagal film where, just change the title and the description of the characters, but the same thing happens in this one. Just like in the first one, his family member died. He goes off to a very quaint, quiet area. In the first one, he went to Arizona or whatever to do a job to get away from New York. In this one, he gets away from LA and he goes chops wood for a while. But I mean,
that was some savage wood chopping though.
Wow. I was hoping he was gonna get. Oh, is he gonna start using an axe on the guys instead of a gun, making this like more personal? He's practicing with that axe. I was hoping, but Glenn, does this like hit the same exact beats of the first one as far as like what Kersey, I mean, as far as what happens?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Now that I'm gonna go away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, relax. Have a couple of drinks, chop some wood, build myself up before I go on a massive murder spree.
Well, the last one he went to Arizona and
gotta be in the right frame of mind, and it's goddamn trees.
I do miss the colorful Arizona cowboy that we had in the last movie. He would have been nice to see again.
You kind of get that with, I think that's what they're kind of trying to go with the radio station, the guy, they'll kind of add the humor. Yeah, forget the 3-minute rape scene. Now let's laugh at the guy who's got a wife who is controlling about the construction of the radio station. No, just forget about the cold-blooded killing that your main character is doing. Let's laugh again as he decides about an archway.
I do want to mention another colorful character in this movie. And it's weird because I didn't know who he was the first time I watched this a few years ago. But in the years since, I've started watching a lot of Dario Argento movies. There's an actor, Anthony Franciosa, and I've been looking away, trying to like do some Googling because I couldn't remember his name or what movie he was in. But he was in Tenebrae. He played the author who was involved in the whole like murder plot. He shows up for like a minute and a half in this movie as one of the LA. I don't know if he's the mayor, but he's in that whole meeting talking about like, how are we going to get rid of this guy? And I'm like, oh, I love that dude. But yeah, he was barely a cameo in this movie. I thought for sure he was going to end up like going up against Paul Kersey or something, but no.
No, the cops don't mess with Kersey at all. You know, I mean, we get the one, you get that one scene too, where the one guy's trying to play hardball with the two people that Kersey saved, though it was because of Kersey, the one guy got shot in the leg. But anyway, you know, collateral damage. But anyway, he lived. But anyway, you know, you get that humor of what did he look like? I did kind of like that scene a bit, them playing at the hero vigilante angle, similar to what you had in the first one, where they're like, you know, they're trying to get a description of, well, who was the guy who killed these thugs? And they're just like, he saved our life. I'm not fucking telling you.
Back to that scene, though. You know, this movie has a lot of tits in it. And only one instance is one that I would consider tasteful. It's not the scene I'm about to talk about, but it's that parking garage scene where the woman is dragged away from her husband, taken into a van, assaulted until Kersey shows up. She's used as a human shield, and of course the floppies are hanging out the front because it's like that's what they're counting on. I just wonder what the psychological makeup of the audience they think they're making this movie for is. Like the people who go in to see Death Wish, they want to see people get blown away and have one hand free to do their business while that's going on. But no, later on, with the last guy who's on PCP, like right before he starts beating up the entire police department, he's in his apartment. He gets into a fight with this lady, and then this other girl is just doing transcendental meditation, like on the floor, completely nude, like with the most impressive set I've seen since Debbie Sue Voorhees in Friday the 13th: A New Beginning.
And she's got her headset on. She's just meditating, and
apropos of absolutely nothing.
If you want, I got some photos here of me meditating. It's pretty much the same thing.
Oh, cool!
Pull those up real quick.
No, I don't want to get banned from YouTube, Glenn. I can't for that type of content.
What are you saying about Glenn's beautiful form?
I'm not. I'm saying that YouTube has some strict censorship standards, and you know,
Glenn, you don't meet the standards. How does that make you feel?
No, I don't meet the standards. I set the fucking standards.
I was gonna say he exceeds the standards. He's a BFD, and YouTube wouldn't allow that much beauty online. So
BFD is going to stand for banned for days if you show those pictures.
Well, if we all take our shirt off, it's okay.
Is this what you want?
Why not? And apparently is what the director thought the audience want in his film, because he tripled down.
He was probably thinking, you know, that first one was in New York. You know what's going to happen in New York? They're going to take away all the porno places in Times Square. So we better make something for those people to jerk off to one last time. And he was right.
He was right. He was right. Yeah,
mostly.
It's just it was really weird too, with the whole New York detective who ends up dying and saving Kersey from getting shot, when they pretty much play out that his whole mission was go get Kersey and to stop him, and he didn't like Kersey in New York blowing crooks away, and he barely agreed with letting Kersey go. He was only doing what he was told, and in here suddenly he has a change of heart after he's followed Kersey, who's following the bad guys for most of the night. Then suddenly in the bushes, a sniper who wouldn't have known Kersey was there if the detective had said, "Look out," because Kersey was undercover the whole time. I mean, the sniper would have seen him, but this guy's like, "Oh, look out, Kersey." And then he shoots, and then they get in the gunfight, and suddenly they're partners. And I'm like, what?
Well, it doesn't make any sense, but it does lead to a lovely moment where Kersey is cradling Vincent Gardini. He's like, "Go get that son of a bitch or that motherfucker
for me." Yeah, go get that motherfucker for me.
Yeah,
you know,
I love that moment.
And then he doesn't, because the guy gets the ladies. There's the transcendental topless scene. Again, Kersey was smart up until this point, and this is what this was one of the elements that frustrated me. Again, I like this better than the first one in many ways, but it was like Kersey has the radio. The SWAT have the last remaining gang members surviving surrounded. They say they're going to break in and get him. Kersey goes into the building where he knows they have it under surveillance to try to get this guy first. And I'm just like, this is the dumbest move I've seen a hero make, because I'm like, hero in quotes, because I'm like, just let the cops take him. You know what I mean? It was because really...
I feel like the concern was they were just going to get him on a regular charge. So they would maybe send him to jail, possibly to prison. Kersey can't get into prison. I think he saw an opportunity later after he screwed things up, because honestly, he would have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for that skirmish in the hallway. He probably just wouldn't have gone there and taken them out. But when the Afro giraffe guy starts taking on the cops because he's on drugs, then it becomes an insanity defense. Then he goes to the hospital. It's a little bit easier to get into. So that doesn't bother me as much. I liked the little twist. I like that Paul Kersey is now getting into disguise. Something I didn't pick up on the last time is when he meets Jerry on that rooftop and proposes to her, and they make this weird plan to go to Acapulco. She says, you've been spending so much time there at the hospital. It didn't occur to me that he was probably doing that so that he would be familiar enough as a face around the hospital. So even with his fake credentials, people wouldn't be like, who's this weird guy walking around? Like, oh no, he's probably a doctor. There's 100 of them in this place.
Well, let's not forget the not so subtle line they drop of going, oh, you've gone with me so many times, you probably know the layout of that place as well as I do.
Yeah.
Not foreshadowing anything that he may be doing. And again, Kersey is smart. They plan to go to Mexico. He knows when he offs this last guy, however he does, he needs an out. So they're going to go to Mexico to get married. That way he doesn't get extradited. or they don't find him, by the time they figure out what has gone on, he's out. He's gone out of the town, city, country.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a smart plan. He's thinking ahead. But I do like, as wacky as it is kind of Bugs Bunny-ish subplot of the fake ID and getting in there. And I like that Charles Cyphers is the the orderly who walks him down to the room and gets him in the same room with the guy. And he's like, oh yeah, that's the old electroshock therapy room, but nobody uses it anymore. More foreshadowing, very subtle. But it's just fun. I was a little bit disappointed that Giraffe Afro guy didn't get his skin didn't fry or something. It was very pedestrian.
Well, I think they were near the end of their budget at this point, so they couldn't afford the extra special effects of him. Everybody twitches extra. He just had extra.
Well, because the original scene was going to be they were going to take him down. He was going to say, "Yeah, this is the old human blender room we used to grind up dead patients, but we don't use it anymore." And that's just they didn't have the budget for that, so they had to go with the electrocution.
Sometimes they hide a little, but especially in the 80s, there just was that trend of the blatant foreshadowing that you just knew was coming. Just like in was it Sudden Impact, or with the unicorn on the carousel, or was that a Play Misty for Me? One of them was they walked past, the bad guy's got a hostage in the carousel or whatever. He walks past and the camera stays on the unicorn with the unicorn carousel horse with the very sharp horn pointed, stays on it for about 4 seconds. And you're like, somebody's going to land on that.
Yeah. The foreshadowing was pretty much as subtle as a RoboCop shot to the dick.
Yeah.
There's just no way you're missing that.
No. And so you get that here with yeah, we're going to put you in the room with the old electroshock therapy equipment. That's not going to come into play.
But I do like that his arm went through like one of the display monitors instead of something like he hooked up some electrodes to him or something. It was kind of incidental action. It was fun.
Well, that does play out well because he punches through the machine and then he hits the breaker. I'm like right away. I'm like, oh, okay. Actually, that went different than I thought it was going to. You know.
I also like the struggle with the guy had the shiv and the multiple. I mean that the multiple stabbings to Kersey through the doctor's coat. Like when later on you can see the little holes like all over the coat as he's walking away, and then when he's taking off his shirt later for the dressing, you see like the little slash marks, and it just looks really gnarly.
Again, take your whole shirt off before you put the bandage in. You're welcome. You can do that. It's okay to take the whole shirt off, not stretch it out and then shove the bandage underneath your shirt, you know, but
by the way, because I did get my degree at Scrubs Community College, I know nothing about like medicine, but what was that bandage? It looks like he like paper mache, or he made it out of like several hundred other bandages and gauze. Like what was that contraption he put on himself? Is that a thing?
It's a Kersey bandage.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's the Kersey bandage. Glenn, what did you think of this whole final sequence? Was this, you know, did it give you some payoff, or was this?
I mean, I suppose. I mean, you know, I mean, first of all, I mean, I'm always leery of the. I'm just going to pretend to be a doctor at a place because I've known enough nurses that ain't fucking happening. They know every doctor and they know everything about every doctor because they know which ones they want to work with, which ones they don't, which ones do things, which ones make them do extra work. The nurses know that place inside and out, and they know everyone in there. But I can skip that. But yeah, I mean, you know, like just the guys just in this room.
Well, yeah. Well, and then he's like, not. And
yeah. I mean, it took 900 cops to subdue the guy when he was on PCP. We'll just leave him hanging out here. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a shiv. He's like not like, you know, like just throw him in that room. Should we leave his handcuffs on? Nah.
Yeah, the guy had the shiv in his shoe the whole time. Why this is the first time he's tried to break out? What? Never mind. And
someone's here now. I can escape. It's been too hard when I was alone.
Let's get a little dark. I'm sorry, we're gonna bring a little reality into it, but let's talk about how unrealistic that whole scene is of the guy whacked down on PCP, comes running out of the building, starts assaulting officers left and right. No one shoots him.
Well, the problem is, and they do allude to this, they can't shoot him because they're in a crowded street.
Well, there's a lot of people. That's true.
And there's like a ring of cops all around them. So if they started shooting, they'd go anywhere.
They did say that there's too many people because the one guy was going to shoot him. I was just like, seems a little unrealistic, but because, you know,
I'm glad it was unrealistic because that was some impressive like stunt work. Like the one guy came at him and he got completely flipped over the hood of the car, just like this beautiful ballet of drugs.
Well, I loved the old school taser too. I forgot.
Yeah, like a spike. Oh.
It was like this spike, and the guy just looked down and went, "What, Glenn?"
I just know that if I was Kersey though, I would stay away from like television sets and stuff because the spirit of Nirvana could be going through these circuits and coming out of it. Oh wait, that's only if he'd been played by Mitch Pileggi. Sorry,
that's right. That's Mitch Pileggi. That's right. Yeah, wrong. That's the wrong thing. Well, and then how about the ruling? I mean, the way this whole thing, I loved how it ended, but the whole ruling of, oh, he was on PCP. So he was not of sane mind. So he's going to be put in the hospital, the mental hospital. I'm like, being cracked out on PCP is not the same as being having a mental health issue that you're like split personality or whatnot. so they put him in the insane asylum until he can join society rather than. I'm like, he didn't have a mental issue. He was on PCP. That's
Well, we didn't see the whole trial, of course, so it's probably just something his lawyer was able to concoct. I mean, plus I don't know how about like drug laws or the perception of drugs versus mental illness back in the early 80s, but I think that checks out. I don't think he would have gotten away with it today.
okay. Maybe I'm thinking too much of modern times, but then they give him a wink to his mom, like adding that little bit of humor again.
And mom's got a mustache.
I guess they made some improvements on the original, and then they faltered still in some other spots. I think on Death Wish 2. I think we'll wrap it up here, but you know, they didn't make a whole lot of money off of this, but it was a very popular film. Yeah, well, because they had to sell all the distribution rights so they could fund the film. Well, they funded the film, but then they couldn't make any money on it because they didn't own any distribution.
Mm-hmm.
In true canon spirit, just make the movie. Which they did in this because they do you know the original concept of this? Kersey was supposed to be more in LA. He was supposed to hook up with a bunch of survivalists, and he was supposed to have like Kevlar vest and decked out with like survival gear and knives and weapons and shit originally, and then they retooled it and held off on it for number 3, I guess, before he started getting some major weapons and such. So
again, all these ideas you're telling us for what this was supposed to be makes Death Wish 2, the way it came out, seem like a freaking masterpiece. All bad ideas.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is what it is. Again, it's this is definitely more of what I expected the first one to be, and it's just a kind of a stark contrast in a way to the first one as far as some of the tone in that, but I think it was watchable. What about you, Glenn? Your final thought with Death Wish 2?
I mean, parts of it are watchable. I think so, yeah, some of the overly gratuitous scenes are just I mean, those scenes you would not see those in a movie today for the most part. I mean, at least not those scenes. I mean, there's plenty of gratuitous things, but not to that degree. And it'd be gratuitous in different ways, but I mean, I'm very. The more I go back and watch a lot of this older stuff, the more I realize that a lot of it was just not. Well, I think there's some good things you can find, like some of the cinematography is really well done and stuff like that, but the stories were just so bad.
Yeah. Thin. They were wafer thin, some of these stories. Ian, what about you with Death Wish 2?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, I did enjoy it more than the first Death Wish, but I also didn't really enjoy it. You know, I'm more curious about 3 and 4 because I know for sure I haven't seen either of those. And if they keep getting more and more ridiculous, then I'm expecting a full blown like Warner Brothers cartoon by part 4. So this will be fun.
Well, part 3 does get more into the ridiculous zone. I haven't seen 4 either, and there is a 5, so maybe we'll do the 5 as a VIP episode. But there is a 5.
That sounds like a threat, Mark.
I might lose patrons for that.
Who is there left in Paul Kersey's life to be raped and murdered? Frankly,
extended fan. Well, initially, I thought that's what the setup was for number 3 when he asks Jerry Nichols to marry him. I'm like, oh, he's going to finish it out. Jerry Nichols and Paul Kersey are going to fly out and get married. And then 3, because I didn't remember much of 3 would be she gets raped and murdered. And, and the local Chihuahua does as well. And then he goes out on a killing spree with that. I don't know. It's I don't know. I don't remember much of 3 outside of that he gets a larger weapons. So it's going to be he gets 2 words: rocket launcher. And that's how we're going to end it tonight. Thank you so much, folks. I hope you enjoyed our little ramble here of Death Wish 2. While it's not that much of an improvement, it still is interesting to see them take this property in this direction. And, you know, he's 60 in this film. Charles Bronson is 60 by the time this is made. And he went on to do 3 more films. So,
wow.
And there's the sigh. Thank you. So now this is where I give my wonderful guests the license to shill. So BFD, you got anything? You got TikTok. Come on. Push something.
Sure. You can find me on TikTok, Games in a Bunker. I do nerdy things.
There you go. He does nerdy things. They're great and entertaining and far better than watching some of the things on TikTok.
I mean, the last one I did, you know, I mean, my whole family was murdered, and then I just randomly started killing a bunch of TikTokers, not caring which TikToker did it.
Again, copyright spoiler room 2021.
Death Tick.
Death Tick. the clock for the death clock rings once. No, anyway. Death Tick. The challenge accepted. No. Oh, great. Now I'm thinking that my mind just went there. A TikTok movie where the challenge, instead of a dance challenge, it'd be something like Truth or Dare, where people have a challenge of how they can kill people in a specific way. There you go.
Oh, it's coming. There'll be a TikTok horror movie, I'm sure.
I'm sure there already is. I mean, there was Truth or Dare, one of them, 5 or 6. I forgot which one it was, but it was similar to that. But anyway, on to Mr. Ian Simmons, license to shill. Sir, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I also have the Kicking the Seat YouTube channel, which you can find at youtube.com/maybe Kicking the Seat. Put up a bunch of interviews and movie review videos each week. And I'm also here on Tuesday nights talking with Mark and also Glenn. So this is a lot of fun.
It is a lot
Join
of fun.
us.
Join us. Yes, subscribe and all that good fun stuff. We got some great reviews coming up this week on the channel and AMA. And yes, next week we continue the other Chuck month with Death Wish 3, which will be a cannon fodder film. So that means a fine person will get a chance to shoot the cannon to see what our next cannon film will be. Though we've been doing a lot of cannon films, but
it's going to be Glenn. I'm going to point. Yeah, there. I'm pointing in the right direction now.
So stay tuned for that, folks. And I would just say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.